Welcome to the Bullish Drive Podcast, where we explore the realms of faith, mental performance, and personal testimonies through conversations with high-level performers. Join us as we extract valuable insights from their experiences to supercharge your pursuit of peak performance. This is the Bullish Drive Podcast. Hello there, fam. Welcome back to the Bullish Drive Podcast, and it's hard to believe, but we're already past the halfway point of this season, and we have some amazing interviews lined up. And as you know, we're all about diving deep into topics like mental performance, mental health, faith, and the world of high-level performers. And today, we have a very special guest who's seen it all. And our guest today is a friend of mine, someone I had the good fortune of crossing paths with during different stages of our careers. He now operates a truly unique gym model that exposes him to various trainers, athletes, and diverse training methods, all while managing the immense pressures of high-level performers. As I continue to engage in conversations and collaborate with a wide array of athletes, musicians, and high-level performers through our agency, one thing has become increasingly clear: the need to address the stigma surrounding mental health. Mental health is just as crucial as physical health, with the only distinction being the source of the issue. The reason mental health often goes unnoticed is that it can be concealed until it escalates into a problem. In contrast, physical health concerns are often visible early on. However, our society invests significant time and effort in maintaining physical health due to its conspicuous nature. While mental health has historically been associated with severe illness, fortunately, times are changing, and there's a growing focus on preventative interventions. Athletes are wisely turning to mental performance coaches, like those at our agency, to equip themselves for the demanding life of a high-performance athlete. One of our agency's foundational verses state, "Do you know that in a race, all runners run, but only one gets the prize? So run in such a way as to get the prize." 1 Corinthians 9:24. And this reminds us that there is a difference on how we compete. And at Bullish Drive, we understand training our minds to complement the game and the performance is the difference maker. Our guest today will shed light on how trainers are incorporating specific practices to enhance focus and presence. If you've been tuning into our podcast for a while, you already know the profound impact your mindset can have on your ability to compete. It's no longer possible to isolate the mental aspect of the game. If you aspire to perform at the level you dream of, it's absolutely vital to have a solid mental game plan. And with that said, I'm super stoked to invite the owner and founder of Sequoia Training Club, Michael Heller Chu, to the Bullish Drive Podcast. Welcome to the show, man. It's good to catch up.
Thanks so much, Jimmy. Thrilled to be on, and I'm so glad to see that you're thriving as well.
Tell us a little bit about your journey, how you got here, and why your gym model. It's very unique. I've never run into a model quite like yours, so I'd love to hear just how you got to this point.
So, I had a career outside of fitness for the majority of my professional life. I was for about 15 years, and around 2017, I decided that I had enough. It was a great career and really interesting and gratifying, but just was itching to do something different. And so I actually went back to school and studied evolutionary anthropology, which was great, but that it wasn't great enough to kind of keep me there. In that field at least. And, so I came back to the U.S. I was out of the country. I came back to the U.S. and, I had always been interested in fitness, been active my whole life, played sports my whole life, was serious about lacrosse when I was younger, got really into martial arts, etc. And had, always kind of flirted with the idea of being in the fitness industry professionally. So I thought I would dip my toe in the water, and I got certified as a personal trainer and moved out to San Diego.
Nice.
And, I had always only wanted to train part-time, just because I have, a few other things that are going on. And so I started doing that in San Diego, and as I was looking for places to be a trainer, I started going around to the kind of the chain gyms, the commercial gyms, went to a Lifetime, went to an Equinox, and, they were like, "Yeah, come on, we'd love to have you on full time." I knew I didn't want to do that. And then they kind of explained the business model to me, and they were like, you for much of the time, you're going to be walking around the gym floor, talking to clients, trying to interest them in personal training packages, replacing weights on the weight rack, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
And so I thought, that's really not what I'm after here. I don't want to be bothering people who have their headphones in and are, just trying to do back squats, trying to sell them personal training advice. It's not what I'm interested in. And so I was really lucky to walk into a place in San Diego called Work Fitness, WERK, run by a guy named Armando Barajas, who's a great guy and has become a good friend and a colleague now. And he ran a gym that was just for personal trainers and their clients, so exclusive to personal trainers, kind of like a WeWork for personal trainers, right? Or like a hair salon. Those are kind of the two ways that I typically describe it, right? So as the gym owner, you build the salon and then you rent out chairs to stylists. And so that's exactly what Armando does. And I trained out of there for about 2 years. And it became clear to me that this was just such a great model for so many reasons. It allowed personal trainers to essentially keep all the money that they make, right? Whereas when you're a personal trainer at a chain gym, they're taking 60-70% of what you're making. So that in the end, you're just making a relatively paltry wage for the time that you're actually training clients, and the rest of the time you're walking around the floor as a salesperson, you know what I mean? Or a janitor,
Right.
And that's no fun. So it's great for the trainer. And from a business standpoint, it's great for the owner because it allows the owner to be kind of semi-absentee. You don't have to be in the gym all of the time because you have no members essentially, right? There's no towels and no refreshments. And it's a gym that's designed for training, and the trainers come and go as they please. They train how they please, when they want, etc. And so I decided that I was going to open up my own gym of that same nature. I started looking in San Diego to do that. The property out there was, first of all, there wasn't a whole lot in terms of places to base a gym out of, and what I did find was really expensive. So I made my way out to Dallas, where I've kind of been in and out of for the past couple decades. My folks live here actually. And things are definitely more affordable here. Business climate is actually really awesome in Dallas. From that standpoint, really an amazing place to be. And I had a couple places that actually fell through the cracks. A couple really nice buildings that didn't work out for one reason or another, as is often the case in commercial real estate, which I think you probably know. And I found one which did work, and that's where I'm at currently. And we've been open since March, and we're cracking along. I've got 12 trainers in here now, and I'm loving it. We're doing great, and working with trainers. We spend a lot of time with trainers, helping them to develop their business, and it's a lot of fun and very gratifying.
Yeah, that's awesome. I actually like that comparison of like kind of a salon. You're renting out chairs, like you said. So I can imagine when you're working with trainers, they bring their own clientele in, kind of like a salon, correct?
Right. Exactly.
So what's kind of the skill levels you see? Is it mostly like young athletes coming in, professionals, college? What's kind of the level that comes through there?
In terms of the clients? So you see everything. Let's see, we had a professional soccer player in here just earlier this week. And we get folks who are extremely deconditioned. You know what I mean? Like right off the couch, Xbox, the whole nine. I would say that probably makes up, if not the majority, definitely a decent segment of the folks who come through here. And then the rest are kind of folks who are either training for a particular event, like a wedding or a Tough Mudder or a triathlon. And then people who just realize that they just need to keep moving to stay healthy and don't love going to the gym maybe, so probably won't do it on their own unless they're paying for it.
Sure. Yeah, it makes sense. I love how the first event you said was wedding.
There's a lot
stuff like that, and it's like wedding. Yeah. It's a great way to put it. So here we dive into kind of mental resilience, mental skills. What have you been seeing just with your trainers and in your gym? How is mental performance tied in with some of the physical training and aspects of athletes that you're seeing?
Oh man, well, I mean, I can tell you anecdotally from my own experience as an athlete and as a trainer that it's critical. I mean, you know, that piece, personal training is a really interesting kind of discipline for the question that you're asking about.
Sure.
Because most people who look for personal training, and this is not all, but I would say that the great majority of people who are looking for trainers, come in with a particular mindset already, right? And I would say a lot of them are, you can there are typologies of clients, right? There's again people who are just preparing for an event and want to look great on the beach. That's not the majority of them. The majority, I would say, are people who don't feel comfortable in the gym, that have never felt comfortable in a gym, who don't enjoy working out for one reason or another, who don't really know how to push themselves or feel uncoordinated, etc. And those are all kind of the species of the same kind of underlying mental and emotional state, right? Which is that a lot of these folks have been kind of convinced over the course of their lives that they're not athletic, they're not highly coordinated, they don't have great stamina or endurance, they're just not skilled, from the standpoint of movement, etc. And with enough reinforcement, and it doesn't always require that much, honestly, particularly if you've been told that at the right age, that becomes a kind of an internal narrative that it gets embedded very quickly, and becomes very hard to snap.
Sure.
And so a lot of those people who come in here, a lot of folks who come in for personal training are people with that internal kind of dialogue, right? Which is, I need a trainer because I'm lousy at this stuff, right? And so much of being a trainer is addressing that. The good trainers know that, right? That 50% of what you're doing is about addressing the kind of that deprecating self-talk, that has led people to you in the first place. And what's interesting is that when you do finally address that, and you start to see people kind of iterate a little bit more positively, it's good from a business standpoint too. I mean, you would think that as people become more confident in the gym and more confident about themselves and their athletic ability, etc., that then they would just be like, all right, cool, and then move on. Not the case. You then become indispensable to that person, because you become far more than somebody who shows them proper form and pushes them a little bit and counts intervals. You know what I mean? You become somebody who's been transformative in their lives and in the way that they you move through the world. And that is, not only deeply gratifying, but also incredibly instructive in terms of, how to deal with people's kind of cognitive and emotional patterns in respect of movement.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. So it almost sounds like your gym, because you're building up trainers, right? You're pouring into them. So is there a part of kind of onboarding these trainers for you that involves making sure that they have the mental preparation techniques and skills, or how are you finding that, and how do you encourage your trainers to look into that aspect of the sports and athletes?
Yeah, there's different kind of classes or classifications rather of clients. There are different classifications of trainers as well that come through here, right? So, I have some trainers who charge $140 an hour, have all the clients that they want, and are perfectly set and don't want to hear a word from me. And that's fine. And I mean, strictly from a business standpoint, that's great. It's very low maintenance, and it's great to have them in here and have real professionals in here who know their craft and are doing it well and are being compensated, in a way that they think is fair, and that's great. But I also get some other types of trainers, and those are trainers who are, let's say, coming from chain gym, like the ones I mentioned earlier, who are coming and maybe don't have a huge clientele, right? And so they need some help developing their client base. Maybe they're already confident walking around the gym floor. They're confident in helping their clients, both from a physical and kind of mental standpoint. And then, there are other trainers who are like recently certified, or have been certified for a while, but never really done it, or done it casually, or only trained their friends and family, etc. And these are the ones who, I'm able to kind of most influence.
Sure.
Because they're looking for help, right? They're looking for assistance. I always stress to them that, this kind of underlying emotional state and the kind of the cognitive, processes that flow from it are as important to address as anything else, both from a business standpoint as well as an actual training standpoint, right? I can give you an example of each. I mean, when somebody tells you that they only, want to train once a week, why is that? What's underlying that? Sometimes it's money, but not always. It's an expensive thing to have a personal trainer, but a lot of times it's people who are, have just made it, over the hump enough to kind of see daylight, and make the decision to get to the gym to see a trainer, but like all they can really stomach is the idea of doing it once a week. And it's helping trainers to understand that there are still these anxieties, these apprehensions that probably come from years and years of conditioning, right? And being told a particular thing, and helping the trainer to actually be able to see that and identify it, assess it, and help clients get past it is good from a business standpoint, because it gets clients in more regularly. From an actual training standpoint, what ultimately matters is it's so evident on the floor. I mean, you see trainers who are helping their clients to actually perform better in so many different ways. I work with some of my trainers to talk to them about visualization, which can be so powerful for people, both in kind of from a long-term perspective, like where do you see yourself 6 months from now? Let's try to get there. Or also in the next 60 seconds, right? See yourself on top of that plyo box. You think you can't do it. So many people, so you see them walk up to the plyo box and they go to jump and they just they'll turn around and never do it. And then you tell them, just see yourself on it, see yourself, boom, right up,
Yeah.
And so I do that with my own clients. I see trainers doing that. I've seen, I tell trainers one of the things that I tell my own clients is, I tell them to make the decision. So just make a decision that you're going to do it. That's all this is. You think you can't sprint that 55-foot long track again, or push the sled down there. You think you can't, but just make a decision to do it. And then as soon as you tell them that, it's like you see the switch gets flipped and boom, they go. And I give some of my trainers, the ones that ask for help, that same cue. Tell your clients to make the decision, right? Or to see themselves there. It's as simple as that. As soon as they know that actually making a decision, deciding to do something enables them to do it. It gets them past this kind of this mental hurdle, or opens this door that existed in its place before, and they don't know that it's that easy to actually get through it, right? All they have to do is decide to walk through it. So, this is a lot of the stuff that I go over with some of the trainers in here.
Yeah, I love that, man. That just hearing you pumps me up. It's like that decision, that's cool. Getting control back, right?
Right.
That's what we want to work with athletes that feel like they're fighting against so many things. Like, it's really, like you said, visualizing it and making the choice, right? This is your journey, right? It's your journey, so get after it. Nobody else can bring that to you. So I love that. Now, there's so many directions I could go, but something you said that I think would be really important, just to talk a little bit for those who are aspiring to get into the professional athletic world in general, is that anxiety. How important is it for young athletes to acknowledge and address and really process past athletic trauma or anxiety in general? How important is that for athletic success?
Yeah, gotta. I think it's primordial. I mean, it's first order stuff.
Yeah.
You know, that anxiety. I mean, particularly with all the research that's coming out, just in terms of how that affects us physiologically and emotionally and cognitively. I mean, anxiety it's a killer. You know what I mean?
Yep.
It destroys performance. It destroys. It brings about negative emotions and negative iterations, and it's just so bad for us on so many levels. So, I think anxiety affects, athletes, affects, people looking to just perform better generally in very much the same ways that it does somebody in the office who's dealing with too much work, right? And I mean, it's, all of the kind of hormonal and biochemical stuff that comes from, chronic anxiety is completely debilitating. And so I think it's critical. I definitely do. I find that breath work helps a lot with, with clients here. I was lucky enough, Jimmy, to have come across, Buddhism, X number of years ago. I think probably about a decade ago, I started kind of really looking into it seriously. And, what it's done for me from that standpoint has been absolutely life-changing. And it has enhanced my own physical performance and the way I go about life in general. And I see that, that same thing happen with athletes who are able to really wrap their arms around, anxiety and the apprehensions that they carry around. Because, if you don't, there's always something percolating right below the surface, right? And and if you don't address it, it will continue to be there, right? And it will never cool down. It will always continue to dog you. You'll always feel it. And so, it's just so critical to address from the standpoint of performance, but ultimately for the rest of your life. I mean, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
The earlier the better. The more you let a little bit of sunlight onto those dark corners of your mind and your emotional state, the better your performance is going to be in all aspects of your life. And that's one of the things we really see here too, in terms of our clients and the folks who are working with our trainers, is that the improvements that they make in terms of how to a client's life, in terms of how they address a particular exercise here, is directly translatable to how they go about a particular thing in their normal lives.
Yeah, that's good. With some of these trends, like you mentioned, there's now research out there, there's people really looking into this mental health. How is that shifting for the future trends of like mental performance coaches being directly working with athletes? We have a handful of athletes in our agency right now that's moving into the college scene, right? And there's new mental performance expectations there. What do you see from the trainer point of view as you're training athletes to move between these different areas of their lives? What the mental performance scene is in those different areas? Is it becoming more popular?
Well, I would say yes, definitely. What I see is a lot greater recognition of that, particularly from the trainers, right? They're putting a lot more emphasis on kind of the whole organism, right? Rather than just kind of the musculoskeletal, right? It's about the whole thing. And people's approach to training is becoming much more comprehensive, much more holistic. I will say, particularly amongst women trainers, amongst female trainers, they seem to grasp that in a much more easily. It makes sense to me, I guess. I think that women by and large are much less afraid of their emotions and much less willing to kind of grapple with them and try to improve them and talk about them, and historically guys, at least in the West, have been a little bit more reluctant to do that. So I do see it, but that's not to say that it's not addressed by guys ever. That's not the case. I mean, there are definitely a bunch of guys who approach it, and through different means. You know what I mean? Like I have one trainer here who's got like every certification known to man, but he approaches some of this stuff through through breath work, through cold plunges, through sauna. Yeah. And so he kind of, he realizes all of the benefits that come in the areas that you're talking about in terms of mental preparedness, in terms of mental health, etc. That come from, different types of protocols that on the face of it seem very bodily, but are far more than that.
It's good. It's good. No, if an athlete is seeking out, if they listen to this podcast, they're like, man, I want a mental performance coach. Is a hybrid more effective, or should there be two separate people kind of doing your physical side and your mental performance side? What are your thoughts on that?
That's a really good question. I think if you can find somebody who is able to do both as effectively as you would find two people doing it independently, obviously I think that would be ideal, because you have somebody who's got a very privileged, very unique insight into you as a like a whole organism, right?
Yeah.
And from the movement standpoint, but also from a psychic standpoint as well. I think based on what I've seen, that's like, those people are unicorns. You know what I mean? Those are pretty challenging people to find. Not to say that they're not out there, but I think they're challenging to find. I think if you're not able to find that one individual who's really got their arms around both elements, I think that getting the two people independently and ensuring that they are communicating well and talking to one another and really having a robust discussion on regular intervals is probably the best approach.
Yeah, kind of kill two birds with one stone.
I think so.
Yeah, but like you said, unicorns for sure. I find one reason why we started our agency is because we do find you're either one or the other, right? You're either a coach that wants to do mental performance but doesn't have like the psych background, or you're on the other end where you're like a therapist who likes sports, so they want to work with athletes, but rarely someone who's both. And we're blessed here to have that. They have both hybrid. Yeah. So is there any last things you want to encourage trainers, new athletes about mental performance, mental skills, or anything else you want to leave with?
I think we covered it. Just to kind of, register the fact that, you actually addressing this, in such a kind of upfront, kind of forthright way is just so critical for people not only to perform better and be more effective at what they're doing, but ultimately to live happier and more fulfilled lives. And ultimately that's really what it's about, isn't it? We're athletes for a time, but we're humans on this world, and for far longer. And the way we feel about ourselves has a direct impact on how we relate to others and how we what our role is in this world. So thanks for addressing this. Thanks for coming on. If you're a trainer and athlete looking for a gym, check out Sequoia Training Club. How do you reach you? Is there a website or? Yeah, there's a website, which is our initials, stcgyms.com, or they can find us on Instagram at Sequoia Training Club. Thanks, brother, for hopping on the show today. It was my pleasure. Thank you, Jamie. And if you want to learn more about mental performance coaching, check us out at www.bullishDrive.com. We appreciate you joining us this week. We'll see you next week. And always remember, it starts with you and your destiny is waiting. Peace.